When the internet's taking that long, it's not a good sign. Here we go. All right, we are live today. This is incredible. This is an incredible day. Today is Wednesday, October 9th, and we are in the midst of a presidential election cycle, and things are going crazy. I can't even believe this year the news that we've had great news and terrible news in the world of taxation. We have seen things not go our way, but things go our way, bizarrely. One thing that went our way is Loper Bright. We're still hoping to unpack the decision of what happens when U.S. Treasury has to have regulations that are somewhat related to the law. That's going to be amazing, right? But we did somewhat lose on Moore versus U.S., where the Supreme Court upheld a retroactive tax on income people never received. So that wasn't the greatest news at all. And really what we're going to be talking about today is the earth-shattering news, though, that Donald Trump now supports ending citizenship-based taxation, or at least so it appears. And this is something that John, Keith, and I have been following for an incredibly long time. John, longer than I believe. But really, we all met. All three of us met in person in
April of 2017.
April 27th of 2017.
Oh, okay.
That was the hearing date where Mark Meadows put together to look at the unintended consequences of FATCA. I don't know if they were unintended. And that's where we met in our first push to sort of try to find a way to get rid of citizenship-based taxation. And I'll tell you, I think everybody thought we were crazy at the time. And the person pushing it at the time was Solomon Yu of Republicans Overseas. I met Solomon along with James Bossert there. And we went over to the Republican headquarters afterwards to give a press release. That was a lot of fun. So we've been subject for a very, very long time. And we are looking forward to talking about this with you guys today. So let's get going with it. John Richardson. Oh, actually, before we get to this, I want to just talk to Keith about this. Keith?
Yes.
How do you feel about this topic today?
How do I feel about the topic? I feel, in absolute terms, I feel good about the topic. I'm glad that he has come out to say that he wants to end double taxation of Americans overseas, if I use the terms that was stated. That actually is a good thing, that at least one of the presidential candidates have said it.
It's amazing. And I think that's really one of the things we need to recognize is it is utterly amazing. From where we went from, in 2017 to no one caring about this issue to much degree. And I think a lot of the time we were screaming, we felt like no one was listening to us. And it's just, so here it is. Now, bizarrely, and I would just say this is not what I was expecting whatsoever. The foundation of the United States of America is its tax code. It is its constitution. So, what Donald Trump is actually proposing is in my mind, truly amending the U.S. Constitution, which is the U.S. tax code, in a way that is unbelievable. It's actually unbelievable, and it's hard for me to even accept this. So I want to turn it over to John Richardson. John has been talking to Solomon Yu, all the heavy hitters in this, and so he's here to give us his report and his update and really the path forward on this. So John, I want to thank you once again for joining us, and let's get into your presentation. Looking forward to it. So welcome, John. How do you feel about this today? Are you excited about this?
Just 1 second, Anthony.
Yeah, you bet. Nothing. Right on. This is a really, really amazing thing. By the way, and I just wanted to let you know, if you want to follow I'm on Twitter, pretty active there. You can find me at IRSMedic at IRS_medic. Also, Keith is on Twitter. Here is his at Keith_Redmond.com. And be sure the great John Richardson also at expatriationlaw.com. You guys can find us on Twitter. All right, John, you ready?
Yeah. Before we go through the slides, let's do a bit of a summary, though. Okay, so it's clear where this is going, or at least where I think it's going. And I want to say at the outset that, so this comes from Republicans overseas, and I've known the people in Republicans overseas for a lot of years. Okay, and so I've kind of been aware of, all the steps that they've taken, their original FATCA lawsuit, the Meadows thing that you just mentioned, the holding bill, et cetera. So this has been a long-term project for Republicans overseas as a group. And there's no question that the Trump announcement, comes from pressure, education, et cetera, from Republicans overseas. Now, I do not want in this discussion this morning to overshoot the mark, so to speak. Okay. I will give sort of my assessment of what does it mean, what does it not mean. Okay. However, I think one of the points that needs to be made here is that this is actually the first time that I'm aware of that anybody but, say, a lone congressman or senator, say Rand Paul or Congressman Holding, et cetera, has ever publicly acknowledged this as an issue, number one, and has made any proposal whatsoever to do anything about it. I mean, there's been absolutely nothing from any previous administration, Democrat or Republican.
Yeah.
I mean, the most we have. I don't want to turn this into a partisan issue, because it isn't, for people on the ground. But I do want to make the point that what is striking about this is that whatever it means, and we'll talk about what it means, I don't want to overshoot the mark on it, but whatever it means, it is very, very clearly something that is coming from a former president, a candidate for president, et cetera, and arguably a statement of the direction in terms of one aspect of tax policy that possible president would go. Now, there's a lot of discussion online, and it's such a big problem. Only Congress can change this, and ultimately, we have to get a bunch of lawmakers involved. And I agree that would be a good thing. But the Republicans overseas proposal for RBT, which is largely based on, things like, I think the regulatory fix paper that I wrote with Karen Alpert and Laura Snyder a few years ago, makes it very, very clear that this problem for Americans abroad can in fact be solved in three ways. One is through a legislative fix, and obviously that would be preferable. But what I find most interesting, it can also be solved by a regulatory fix. And that's what's really interesting about this, because obviously a future Trump administration would, appoint the next Treasury Secretary. The next Treasury Secretary, would, be, at least in theory, having to take their walking orders from the administration. So what this does, in theory, and this is why this is extremely important, is that it creates an opportunity for, and it underscores the possibility of a regulatory fix for this problem. And what a regulatory fix would mean would be in the Internal Revenue Code. The statute says every individual is subject to U.S. worldwide tax, wherever you are in the world, with a carve out for non-resident aliens. But there's a regulation that currently defines individual as resident or citizen, and that can be changed, to resident, quite obviously, right? So, by way of background, it is extremely important that I think listeners understand that what this does, whatever it means, is it opens up the door for a discussion on the regulatory level that has never existed before. And what it also is, to repeat, is a statement from somebody who actually could make a difference on this, right? So with that as background, let's go through this. And I want to minimize what I think it means, what it could mean, etc. I mean, I think it means a lot, but everybody has their own idea of what it means to end CBT, or, end the horrors inflicted on Americans abroad. And I think this can mean different things to different people. So let's with that as background, let's go through this, okay?
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And I just want to say, and just to sum up what John is saying, essentially, and this is really, I think, if you actually look at the U.S. tax code, if you start at Title 26, Section 1, if you start off, it says there's a word there called individual. But the word individual is never defined, other than we know an individual can be widowed, a head of household, or married. Those or single. Those are the things we know, or dead, right? Those are the things we know about individuals. But other than that, the tax code is completely silent as to what an individual is. And so the regulations can keep it kind of open and say, well, I'm going to define an individual as somebody living in the U.S. That would be the regulatory fix, and that is the problem. People who are proponents of the tax law have is that it's vague. It's not written well. It's not written well at all. So a Trump-appointed Treasury Secretary can simply impose, or the belief would be they may be able to just impose a regulatory fix to citizenship-based taxation. All right. So John, let's get to your presentation. All right, here we go. All right.
So now his language, and I think this is very, very important here, is ending double taxation.
Yeah.
Now let's pause for a minute. You'll notice that does not say ending citizenship.
Right. Yeah.
It says ending double taxation. And, as I was, of course, one of the reasons that most of the reasons I put these presentations together is to organize my thinking on this a little bit, because I have to think about it when I'm doing this, right? But I've actually decided that ending double taxation may be the best way to actually put this, for reasons that I'll get to. But notice he doesn't say moving to RBT, he says ending double taxation. Okay, so with that as bad, now that is incredibly relevant. It's incredibly broad, but it doesn't speak to any particular method of doing this, does it? Okay, so now let's go on here.
But and I think the point is it's probably a more powerful rhetorical device. And citizenship-based taxation. What does that mean? Right?
Right. It's easier to digest the words double taxation.
Yeah, right. Oh, okay, right. I shouldn't be double taxed. And so that is the retail level politics. I think that's a better way to present it. So, all right. So go ahead, John.
Yeah. And so, here's the news release from Republicans overseas. And I want to emphasize again, partly because of, negativity I see in social media. Look, people, you need to understand that Republicans overseas has been working on this problem since at least as early as 2012 or whenever it was formed.
Yes.
And Republicans overseas brought the first FATCA lawsuit, the FATCA legal action. Republicans overseas organized the Meadows hearing in 2017. Republicans overseas was largely responsible for the holding bill in 2018. Republicans overseas over the last few years, and notably this year, has put together a proposal, to end this thing. I mean, these are all things Republicans overseas has done and continues to do. And I want to make that point, okay, because the organization has been working very hard for Americans abroad without going out and trying to get their vote in return. Okay, the way other groups have been doing. But anyway, I think that's just important for people to understand. Okay?
I want to just add to that too. I met James Bossert there at the FATCA hearing. He said something so interesting to me. He said, Anthony, I said, I've been working in Hong Kong here and there, and it's like the U.S. citizenship-based taxation is destroying opportunities for Americans around the world. And I really thought, I was like, wow, you're right. I mean, you're really, really right about that. And I mean, I think the thing, and here's a comment. Here's a comment, McNello. Thank you. Yeah, any citizenship-based taxation would be huge for me. Even talking about it's even with the foreign income exclusion, he's still stuck with a fat tax bill. And I mean, I just the idea that Americans can move overseas and escape the U.S. tax system, I think it would explode and deploy American talent around the world, making, it would really dramatically better the world and Americans if it actually happened. It's really something amazing. So let's just kind of think about that, what this could be. And again, the Republicans overseas, really great guys who I think understands the issues very well. So, all right, go ahead.
Well, that's their news release. And there's a link to it. Okay, continuing on.
All right.
Now, you have seen over the last few days video clips from other people affiliated with the Trump campaign on this issue. And one of the best ones was from Tulsi Gabbard, and I think this came out yesterday or the day before. It's a 1-minute clip. I think it'd be worth watching. But the specific language where she's speaking to America, it begins with "to my fellow Americans who are living abroad." That's how it opens. And the relevant content is President Trump wants economic freedom for all American citizens, no matter where in the world you may be. Well, there's no question, okay, that the tax code, as Jim Gossard and others have pointed out, is a restraint on economic freedom. And that's why he's committing to ending the double taxation. Again, what this is a recognition of the problem, an indication that they would like to try to do something about it. But what's absent is how exactly is that to be done. And that, by the way, I think is a good thing because it opens up possibilities for all kinds of considerations. Next.
Beautiful.
Now, one of the things here that, I find incredibly frustrating. I mean, I've been at this for a lot of years now, okay? And I am really, really frustrated just by the level of ignorance on the part of Americans abroad. And they are, at this point, individual Americans abroad are as big a part of the problem as anything else. And here's a comment, and it's a nice comment, but I think it speaks volumes, okay? This was actually from a Facebook group in response to an announcement about this thing. It says, firstly, it's not really double taxation, okay? For the vast majority of people, it's just the burden of reporting is expensive because you may have to pay a special accountant, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really intrusive. That is, I can't really get married again because my non-American partner doesn't think the U.S. government should know all his financial ins and outs either. I don't pay double tax to the U.S. My parent is paying an accountant who, by the way, is based in the U.K. Now, what that is a clear pushback against the notion that somehow double taxation is the issue. And I think that we need to talk about this a little bit, okay? Because in my view, this person is confusing the amount of tax that's paid with the concept of double taxation. Also, what this person is doing is saying, well, it doesn't bother me, so it's not a problem, okay?
Right. I just put money down a hole each month.
Yeah.
Each year to pay someone to prove I don't know anything. But so what's the big deal, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose on another level, I don't know, this other comment about I can't really get married again. I mean, is this person saying that as an American I'm too good to marry and not, if they won't put up with this? I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is an interesting comment.
Well, no, I think they're just saying it's like, well, it's not a big deal. Well, I just can't get married again. So I mean, that's some serious gaslighting, I would say.
Yeah.
Hey guys,
oh, what's the big deal? I just can't get married.
I
can't live my life. But what's the problem, right?
I was taking it a different way on that particular part because what I heard was I can't get married again because I don't want to subject my non-American spouse to anything that has to do with the IRS.
Yeah.
That's how I took it.
No, I think that's a very reasonable interpretation, Keith. But the thing about it is that no matter how you interpret the part about the non-American partner, no matter how you interpret that, this is one more individual American saying, no, this isn't really a tax problem. Okay. Et cetera. Now I want to explain why this is double taxation. Okay. I think this is extremely important. Next.
Okay. I just want there's a comment we got here right here. James, I think you might be confused, James. Thank you for your comment. But while the income tax did require the 16th Amendment to pass it, the law is written so poorly that individual is never defined, and that is why the regulations can adjust that. There's not going to be the 16th Amendment does not need to be repealed at all. So I think that might be what your comment is. So, and by the way, thanks for joining us today. Thank you. I really appreciate that. All right, so let's go back to you. Back to you, John. Oh, hi, Jack. How you doing? Nice to see you. All right, so back to you, John.
Next.
All right.
Now, again, as a reminder of what citizenship taxation is, and I think that the Republicans are very smart in not talking about citizenship taxation, but talking about double taxation. In other words, they're not talking about something nobody understands what it is. They're talking about something that's presumptively negative. But I think it's worth reminding that citizenship taxation is only one practical meaning in the world, and that is the United States imposing their tax system on people who do not live in the United States, and specifically on income that has nothing to do with the United States. That's what citizenship taxation is.
Made money outside the U.S. Yeah, I'm outside the U.S. and I made money out the U.S. That's what it is.
Yeah, now that's why this is really, really important, okay? Because remember, all countries tax their residents, so it doesn't affect U.S. citizens living in the United States. All countries tax income sourced by the country, so it doesn't affect that. It affects only one group of people, and that is a subset of people who are residents of other countries, that is, those who are claimed as U.S. citizens with respect to income that has nothing to do with the United States. In other words, this is a direct attack on the tax sovereignty of other nations, okay? And it's, of course, reinforced by the treaty savings clause, and as we've talked about before, and then the other countries aid the United States through FATCA hunt to find these people, right? But that's what it is. Next. Now, remember that, it all starts with being a U.S. citizen, right? So the United States uses the fact of U.S. citizenship or being born in the United States as an excuse to literally own that person for life, no matter where they go. It's practically an ownership issue. But what U.S. citizenship means, I remember a few years ago, it's actually a tax lawyer who asked on the 4th of July, what is the meaning of U.S. citizenship? Well, here's some answers. It means being a U.S. tax resident wherever in the world you live and subject to
Universe.
on your worldwide income, wherever it's earned. Now, the second thing, though, and this is what people need to understand, it means being a dual tax resident.
Yes.
It means that you're born a dual tax resident if you leave the United States. It's like the invisible dog fence, right?
Right. Because you can't stop being a tax resident of the United States.
As long as you're a U.S. citizen, right? So remember, U.S. citizens, if you can imagine, they go around, first of all, congratulations, you're the newest U.S. citizen. Good news, wherever you go in the world, you will be a U.S. tax resident. Just think of all the money and professional fees that will save you trying to figure it out, okay?
Yeah.
So if a U.S. citizen leaves the United States and lives in another country, they become a dual tax resident, both the United States and of that other country. Now, being a dual tax resident means, okay, that you're subject to the complete tax code of each of those two countries, which means, on my third point, what it means to be a U.S. citizen, it means presumptive double taxation.
Yes.
That's what it means.
That's what it means.
You hold up your U.S. passport, what it really should say is double tax person, doubly taxed, or something like that.
Right now, and again, there might be exceptions and ways out of it, but it's presumptive double taxation because you cannot escape being a tax resident of the U.S.
Yeah, that's right. So to keep a really simple example, you're a U.S. citizen, you go to France, you have a job in France, you're an employee or something. Okay, no question that the U.S. claims the right to tax that income. France claims the right to tax that income because you're a dual tax resident. So again, what U.S. citizenship means in the 21st century is dual tax residency if you try to live outside the United States. That's what it means, okay? And maybe that's okay because to whom much has been given, much is expected. So maybe that's okay.
Yeah.
Next. Now, I think we need to understand what double taxation actually is. So now the phrase is in double taxation. So what does that mean? And this is a definition, so I thought I'd actually get some third-party thoughts on that. So here's, because there's going to be pushback to this, okay, for sure, right? But so here's what the OECD says, okay, international juridical, oh my God, it said, anyway, what it means is you take a certain item of income, the same person is taxed on it twice. That's what it means, right? So to take our example, or that's what it includes, right? So we take that example of the U.S. citizen, say an accidental American, living in France, is going to be taxed by both the United States and France on that same income. Okay, now pause. I know what the accountants in the room will be screaming, or others, but we have the tax treaty that prevents it. Now, really, please get a life, okay, or go back to sleep.
Right.
Okay, honestly, that ranks as one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. Write it down. Okay, it's so outrageous. Because look, the point of the tax treaties is to mitigate the effects of double taxation, not to make it so that there's no double taxation. Right. Are you with me?
Yeah.
A tax treaty, to the extent that it applies, okay, is something that it doesn't end double taxation. The double taxation clause in the treaty is designed to mitigate it. It exists because of double taxation. If you didn't have double taxation, you wouldn't need this part of the treaty, right?
That's a good point.
Right.
Okay, again, I'm going to say that again.
It's important to say it again.
Have double taxation to begin with. If it didn't exist, you would not need foreign tax credit rules. You would not need a treaty that purported to mitigate the effects of it. So let's smell.
You wouldn't need John. You wouldn't need a treaty that says relief from double taxation. You wouldn't need it, right?
Right.
If you were double tax, you wouldn't need it.
Yeah, so let's cut the bullshit here, okay?
Right. And it is a major problem because that myth is promulgated out there within the U.S. tax compliance industry and with Americans, in Americans' overseas population.
Of course it is. Of course it is. So again, now I'm going to say this again, and as many times I have to. U.S. citizens, by their very nature, because they're defined as wherever they go in the world, all right. Once they become a tax resident of another country, they are dual tax residents, and therefore there is presumptive double taxation. And to go back to how much people actually end up paying, okay, that's the result, to the extent that it applies, and it doesn't always apply, of trying to mitigate the reality of double taxation. Okay, so all the U.S. citizens overseas, I want you to get up and go look in the mirror. And I want you to say to yourself, I live a life of double taxation because I'm a U.S. citizen. Okay?
Right. Yeah, just live in that truth.
All right, next. Now, so now we deal with this whole, we go back to that Facebook comment. I think what the person is saying is, well, when all these odds and ends of rules are applied, I really don't end up paying double tax or something like that. Well, that may very well be. And that's necessary to keep this con going on, right? Okay. And the way that double taxation is mitigated, the effects, the existence and effects of double taxation, which is the reality here, are mitigated is through, foreign tax credit rules. Now, in a very basic sense, this is an incredibly complicated area in the code, but in a basic sense, okay, what a foreign tax credit is. Now, listen to me carefully. It doesn't mean there's no double taxation. What it means is, ready, that you pay the U.S. tax that you owed. You use the tax paid in the other country to pay the U.S. tax, right? You see what I'm saying? So let's imagine $100,000. The U.S. wants to tax it at 20%. France wants to tax it at 20%. The way the foreign tax credit rule would work is that the U.S. says, you owe us $20,000 of tax, but you know what? We're going to let you pay us that $20,000 through a tax credit, a recognition of the tax that you paid in France. So again, the point I want to make here is, if you're a U.S. citizen, the meaning of U.S. citizenship is double taxation. That's what it means. How do you feel about being a U.S. citizen? Well, I love my double taxation.
Yeah.
All right. Now, some basic things that need to be understood about these foreign tax credit rules. They do not prevent double taxation. They exist because of double taxation. Okay?
Yeah.
They provide some relief in some cases, right? And we'll get to that to the extent that we need to. In other words, we're going to let you pay your U.S. tax with the tax paid in other countries. That's what my third point means. But I also want to make the point that most foreign tax credit rules operate completely independently of tax treaties. And again, this nonsense about the treaty prevents, I mean, this is so incredibly wrong. And the people who walk around spewing this nonsense are actually, they are reinforcing the temple, the church of citizenship taxation. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think it's just something that bears to be repeated, because double taxation most certainly happens because credits don't necessarily line up.
That's exactly right.
Or credits can't even be applied.
Or that, right.
Yeah, we're going to get there in a second. That's absolutely right. Now, but I want to make another point here. The U.S. tax treaties, what they actually mean is not what they say. Surprise, surprise. What U.S. tax treaties mean is that the other country agrees the U.S. is not obligated to provide a credit for foreign taxes paid. Not obligated. Yes, it's true. Next slide will explain why. This is the model tax treaty.
Wait, what does this say? Does that say relief from double taxation?
That's what it says.
Oh, wow.
Well, but hang on a minute.
Okay.
At least that's honest. Relief from, must have to have double taxation to be able to relieve it. Agreed?
Right.
Yeah. So again, the point here is that Americans abroad, what it means is double taxation. But I want you to, let's look at the text of this. And this is pretty close to what these things are all around the world. In accordance with now, basically, in the case of the United States, here's what they're agreeing to in the treaty. It says, in accordance with the provisions and subject to the limitations of the law of the United States, they'll give a tax credit. In other words, if U.S. law internally says they have to give a tax credit, they'll give a tax credit. Otherwise, there's no treaty obligation to do it. And therefore, this particular section of the tax treaty is the U.S. reinforcing not that they're going to provide relief from double taxation, but that they don't have to. And it's unbelievable to me, that. And by the way, a very recent example that's illustrated this point is the whole net investment income tax issue, right?
Yeah. And again, you have a comment from Mike here. Exactly. There's no pushback from other nations, right? They just, whoa. I mean, this treaty is subject to our law.
Well, here's the problem.
What does that mean?
The problem is that most people who think about tax treaties think about the OECD model treaty. And it does have a lot of similarities with the U.S. one, but it really is designed, to provide sort of bilateral relief. The U.S. is not, right? It's an exception. It's like carve-out, right? In other words, of course we're going to provide relief from double taxation through a tax credit, subject to the following carve-out. If we don't want to. Okay, that's all it means, all right? I mean, this is unbelievable stuff. Next. But yeah, we have all these Americans abroad running around saying, the treaty prevents. I mean, these are absolutely so misinformed. Now,
by the way, I just want to interrupt. If you are looking, I have John's slides in the YouTube description. You can find a link to those, so you can get all the links, and also on Twitter, on X. If you go to my profile at IRS_medic, you can find them there too. So,
now let's talk about next some situations here, and we'll see how these things work. First of all, there's a great link.
This one.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a great link. All right, what was the one before? What was the slide before?
This one.
Oh, yeah. Okay, next. Yeah. So we're doing that. There's 192 pages of comments from social media on this problem. Okay, for those who think that somehow, they're the center of the world, and if they don't have the problem, nobody else does. Next. Now, again, I've been over this already. I've explained it, but just a reminder here, if you're a U.S. citizen outside the USA, you're a dual tax resident and presumptively subject to double taxation, right? And this has, and this sort of flows through in different ways for different people at different times and different circumstances. I want to show you, I've got here, I think, 7 examples that will show how confused this gets and why people have trouble understanding it. Okay, next. Okay, now, first of all, I want to show you 2 examples of where there actually is no double taxation. But the reason there's no double taxation is because one country refrains from taxing the income. That's the reason. So here's your first scenario. Employment income of less than 100,000. Under the U.S. rules, you might use the foreign earned income exclusion, which means that income is excluded from U.S. taxation. Only Canada will tax it. Notice, no double taxation because the U.S. doesn't tax it and Canada does, right? Here's another example. You sell your principal residence in Canada. The U.S. does tax the gain. Canada will not, right? Now, notice the double taxation is avoided only in cases where both countries do not tax the income, right? Okay, so these are, I think it's interesting to acknowledge this stuff. Certainly, all Canada would have to do, which I suspect they will, is start taxing the capital gain on a principal residence, and then you've got double taxation again, right? But notice that the only way to avoid the problem is for one country to simply not tax the income. Now, I want to pause for a minute on that. I would agree that if all you're trying to do is avoid double taxation, something like the holding bill or the buyer bill probably would get you there if it means that the U.S. refrains from taxing foreign, income earned outside the United States. But in any case, next. Okay. Now, here are two examples where the double taxation, of course it exists, but it's relieved by foreign tax credit rules. All right. So you live in Canada, you receive a dividend from a stock. Both the U.S. and Canada will tax the dividend. What happens is, though, that the tax paid in Canada will be used as a credit against U.S. taxes owing. So here we have a relief provision against existing double taxation, right? In other words, it just means that at the end of the day, you may not pay a double tax bill, but there is a double tax bill. And the reason you don't pay the double tax bill personally is because you're allowed to pay it in effect by using the amount of tax paid in the other country, right? Okay. Scenario 4. What's this about? Employment. I already gave this example. This is the same as the one in France. Okay. Now, next group of these things. Now I want to show you ones where double taxation exists because it's taxed by both countries, but where it's not relieved by foreign tax credit rules and the person is taxed twice. Okay, and there's a lot of this going on. There's increasingly more of this going on, and I'll comment on that more in a second. But let's take scenario 5. U.S. citizen runs small business in Canada, subject to U.S. GILTI tax. You're going to be double taxed, buddy. Okay, you're going to be double taxed unless you use, a 962 election or God knows what, or the high tax income exclusion. We'll get to that. But the point is, this is double taxation. It's fine. Yes. Okay. Scenario 6, the net investment income tax. Now, this has gotten a lot of publicity over the last few years, but the way the foreign tax credit rules are written in the Internal Revenue Code, that there is no foreign tax credit allowed if you pay the net investment income tax on, say, French investment income. So there you go. I mean, that's clearly double taxation, isn't it? Okay, right. No relieving provision.
Right up to 3.8% of double taxation.
Yeah, it's a 3.8% surcharge on being American, right? Oh, lucky you, you're an American. You got to pay an extra 3.8%. By the way, non-resident aliens do not have to pay that.
Right.
That is a pure double tax based citizenship. Democrats abroad, where are you? That is a pure double tax based on and only on being a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
How do you like your freedom now?
How do you like it now? Right on.
All right, next. Non-U.S. mutual funds. This is, it's the complexity that masks the evil of all this stuff. But trust me, okay, the PFIC rules are about double taxation.
Oh, my God. It is incredibly bad. By the way, we have done, that the conventional wisdom in the tax industry is non-U.S. mutual funds are PFICs. John and I, we've gone through that, explained actually there's no real basis for that. The IRS has never claimed it. So there's just something else about it too, is that in the world of international taxation, the rules the IRS has are intentionally vague. I think intentionally vague. Regardless, they're vague. And so what happens is the tax industry writes the law. Conventional wisdom of the tax industry right now is foreign mutual funds are PFICs. And where did it start? It started in 2009. And the context is missed. again and again. So it just gets even crazier because people don't even know what the law is. And if you file conventionalism, there is most certainly double taxation.
Of course there is. So, I mean, I think where we are with this, okay, and there's a series of videos that's Jim Gosser, Republicans Overseas. Yeah. I mean, I've known him for probably a decade and been working with him on this stuff. I mean, they have really been working hard. There's a series of 10 videos I did with him that explain this stuff in somewhat greater detail. But notice that as long as the United States, continues to tax non-resident citizens on foreign source income, we have this problem. Okay, next. Now, how do we solve this? Solving the dual. So really what this is, right? Now, this is interesting in thinking this through. This is really about solving the dual tax residency problems of U.S. citizens abroad, right? This is why it doesn't apply to retirees abroad, particularly they're on permanent vacation, this sort of stuff. It applies to a narrow group of people, and that is the people who actually live in other countries. But here we go. The permanent solution, as we know, can result only from separating citizenship from tax residency. Okay. The recent Republicans Overseas proposal suggests that this can be accomplished, well, and others, right, through a legislative fix. I mean, to get the internal rev would be the best. But again, I emphasize that this does open the door to discuss the regulatory fix, right? A future Trump administration saying, you know what, we're going to fix this so our citizens can, work outside the United States, without being molested, by these laws, right? And there's also the possibility of neutering the saving clause in tax treaties. But anyway, all of that is the RO proposal. It can be found at that link. But anyway, this something, in other words, there's different ways to skin a cat. There are different ways of solving this problem. And clearly, what this really is about is double taxation. Okay. And, again, once you define the goal as ending double taxation, I think that there are a variety of ways that this can be done. Obviously, though, the legislative fix is preferable. Okay, next. Okay, now on the regulatory fix, here's, in 2020, we did the article, A Regulatory Fix for Citizenship Taxation. It's been very well circulated. If you go to SSRN, there's 5 links, to various discussions of it for those who are interested. Again, what a regulatory fix is, a future president calling in the new Treasury Secretary and saying, you know what, we're going to solve the problem of double taxation for Americans abroad. Okay, we cannot have this going on anymore. And I want you to look at ways that this can be done by changing regulations, which we have control over in the Internal Revenue, a complete end run around Congress and all this stuff. There's 5 links that discuss it. Next. This is a discussion of it with tax notice. Good discussion. It's like 4 or 5 years ago. Again, emphasizing this is possible. Next. Now, proposed solutions. Now that's the theoretical, right? And again, I emphasize that this is extremely helpful. Okay, in the sense of saying, well, this is what is possible, right? From a regulatory. Now let's look at what has been going on. Part 4. Proposed legislative change. To date, no congressman has proposed separating citizenship from tax residency, which is the gold standard. All proposals have left it intact, just trying to make the measures, more tolerable. The holding bill, which is probably the best so far, left U.S. citizens as tax residents, but essentially expanded the foreign earned income exclusion. The buyer bill is the same sort of thing. This is not ending CBT. It's not even RBT. It's simply a legislative carve out in the code. To be clear, territorial taxation means U.S. citizens are still U.S. tax residents. It's just a new carve out created.
So what do you mean? Can you explain that a little bit more for me? Yeah.
So let's look at so far all the proposed legislative changes have looked to the foreign earned income exclusion as the mechanism to do it. Now everybody would agree right, that U.S. citizens or U.S. tax residents, even though there is a foreign earned income exclusion, right? Just saying, yeah, you're a U.S. citizen, you're always a U.S. tax resident, but we're going to create an exclusion and a carve out, which means, yeah, you're still a U.S. tax resident, but we're going to let you exclude certain kinds of foreign earned income, okay? And at present, that's very narrow. It's employment type income, et cetera. 110 or 100, I don't even know what it is, but it's not, it's enough to quell discontent from a lot of people, but not enough to solve the problem. What the holding bill did was essentially dramatically expanded the amount allowed to be excluded under the foreign earned income exclusion and expanded the types of income that could be excluded, right? So let's say that you were to amend this so you have a foreign earned income exclusion. All income sourced outside the United States up to $20 million is excluded. Well, you're still a U.S. tax resident, okay? You still have self-employment tax or, this, that, and the other thing, right? You're still subject to the reporting requirements,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
All it's done is created a carve out, right? And that's better than nothing, okay? But it does not solve the problem. The problem is the problem is defining U.S. citizens as tax residents. Period. Okay, so that's what Congress has. Well, some members of Congress, a couple have talked about, right? Okay, next. Now the Trump proposal, which we don't know what it is, and I don't know what it is, in double taxation. What does this mean? Now, first thing is, this is incredibly flexible, right? It's just saying, look, we acknowledge this is a problem. This is the first time this has been. We acknowledge this is a problem, and we're going to look at how we can fix it, right? There's clearly nothing specific in this about how to do that, all right? But it does appear to be, at the very least, an acknowledgement that this is a problem. And an acknowledgement that this is a problem is at least the beginning of a possible discussion on the issue, right? Which has not existed up until now. Now, points I'm making here, because double tax is the result of it always being, it's possible this could mean separating citizenship from tax residency. That would be the gold standard. This would be the RO proposal or the C proposal. Or maybe it means something like the holding bill, where you just muck around with the foreign earned income exclusion and find a way to exclude foreign income, non-U.S. income from taxation. It's vague. Those are a couple things, that might be considered, but we don't know. Next, I think to some extent the vagueness of it may be one of the benefits of it, right? That it opens up the door, to a wide-ranging discussion. But what it definitely means is this, and I've learned in life that it's far better to focus on the things you know about than the things you don't, which has left me very little to focus on in life, by the way, Anthony. But in any case, I think it's important to note that, again, this is the first time a president who does direct the Treasury has spoken about this problem. Pause for a minute. That's huge. Okay. And I think that's extremely important in the context of what has been a really, really nasty campaign where Democrats abroad has absolutely positively gone out of their way to avoid this as an issue, to obscure this as an issue, to pretend it doesn't exist. This is awful. While saying, hey, vote for us, vote for us. Are we going to consider your issue? No. We want Americans abroad to vote, but we're not going to consider the issues of Americans abroad. How cool is that? Okay. This opens up the door to any kind of legislative change or regulatory change. I suspect that the regulatory change is more likely because that, we don't care who the Congress is then. Right? But again, this is a proposed expression of a desired result and an acknowledgement of a problem. I actually think that this, by defining the problem as double taxation, really invites input from all sides. Okay, next. Now, these are more comments. I did a podcast, a lengthy interview with Solomon Yu about this. This just came out October 2nd. A lot of this, I think it's worth looking at if you're interested in this, where, he talks about, well, just, the road to getting here, which has been tough. Next. This is 2018, just to show you how long RO's been working on this. This is in London, UK, and you can see I was a participant in that as well. You know, talking about the holding bill in 2018. Next. This is getting attention.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's good. That's very, very good. You know, there's you can go to the RO's site, you'll see their announcement. Interestingly, next. Here's a tweet. I find this hard to believe, but what it suggests is retweeted 1 million times or something, or liked 1 million or something. Anyway, whatever's going on, okay. I mean, this thing is making the rounds and getting a lot of interest. 1 million views.
Amazing.
Yeah. Really be. I don't know. Okay, next. Now, you know, again, looking at, I really come around to the view that the problem in getting citizenship taxation changed is mostly now individual U.S. citizens who are, you know, kind of ignoring it. They're seeing this through the lens of politics rather than, you know, that all Americans abroad are sort of in this together. There's so much negativity. I mean, I just can't.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, what is wrong with these people? And, you know, somehow this reminds me of a great quote from Henry Ford, you know, as in Ford Motor Company fame, where he said, you know, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're usually right. So individual Americans abroad are actually reinforcing citizenship taxation by pretending that this problem cannot be solved, by supporting political parties who absolutely ignored the issue. They are go in the mirror. You're the problem. Okay, at this point, I mean, it's as though you know you're the iron wall. What do they call that? The Pittsburgh Steelers, the steel curtain or something. It's as though Americans abroad have now become the defenders of citizenship taxation. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Next.
So
stay tuned, stay positive, stay inquisitive, and avoid the reflexive negativity. Okay, seriously. Okay?
yes.
Avoid the negativity.
And I think that's what I want to talk about now, John. Is just really, you know, we got some great comments in here. I think we can go through some incredible. We had a great audience today, one of our biggest ever. I'm not terribly surprised due to the subject matter. And, you know, I know that a lot of people, you know, aren't fans of President Trump, right? He's a very polarizing figure. And I think this is the thing. Look, if you don't like him, I'm not asking you to like him, but like what he did. And now I actually see the gift that he gave us. Because one of the problems that we've always had about talking about citizenship-based taxation and citizenship-based taxation, what does that even mean? And I see that, you know, Borchelli even has a question. What does that mean? Is U.S. taxation worldwide or universe-wide? Well, you're right. As Mike indicates, U.S. would tax you on Mars. Anywhere is actually where it is. So anywhere in the universe is actually where you're subject to U.S. taxation. So on Pluto, in the Andromeda galaxy, you would be subject to it. I'm not sure exactly how that enforcement would go. You need to be in a different universe to not be subject to U.S. taxation if you're a U.S. person. That's really what it is. So what a fascinating idea. Wherever the universe may be, the IRS jurisdiction is if you're a U.S. person. So a pretty crazy way of that we're going. That's pretty insane. So I think. And Keith, this is what I want. And I know, Keith, this is a hard subject for you to get to.
Yeah, but you know, I'm going to add something positive
Great.
to what you. Well, John, I agree with what he laid out, but on the heels of what you said, is that for those Americans overseas who don't like Trump, who loathe him, that's fine. What they can do is they can take this press release that's come out that Trump has stated that he would end double taxation for Americans abroad, take it and go to Democrats abroad and start pushing back on them to get in front of Harris and to say, what are you going to do about it? You see what I mean? If you don't like Trump, fine. Take it to your party and say, what are you going to do about it? What is your position on Americans overseas? How are you going to resolve the problem? That's what should be done. And that's where Americans overseas fall short. that will
Right.
complain about not liking the Republican Party or not liking Trump. That's fine. That's fine. But take this issue that affects you and go to Democrats abroad. Go to Rebecca Lammers.
And
Go to whomever and say, you need to get in front of Harris.
Yeah.
Get her position.
All right. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Keith. Yeah, it's great feedback. Right. Let's it's a great idea. It doesn't need to be a Republican idea only. Please, Democrats, co-opt it. We'll love it. We'll all do it. And yeah, just here's Gabe's comment. Technically, we don't need a constitution amendment to end it. That's right. We can just do it with a regulatory fix, as we discussed. Let's see here. Let's see. We have right. Oh yeah, right. Here you go. Well, Jack, we won't get fooled again, right? And a few times we thought things would change, and actually in 2017 things got worse. Trump, signed into law guilty. Guilty didn't exist until 2017. He was the one who did it. Yeah. He did the transition tax. He did these things that they did not help. They did not help at all. So he actually made it worse. And so, well, okay, man, great. I like the campaign promise, but exactly what does it mean? Well, and this is what I would say to that, Jack Dack. And this is what I would say. Trump already has delivered. He gave us the best thing so far. As I was saying, it's very difficult to tell people to end citizenship-based taxation. It's an abstract concept. But when you say end double taxation, whoa, what do you mean? What's that about? Oh, well, do you think all Americans should have their opportunities around the world limited by being doubly taxed? Well, no. Hey, I'm American first. And now you're appealing, right? You're appealing to that American side. Hey, Americans, the world's our oyster, right? We should, our opportunities should be limited by our U.S. tax code. That's what we're trying to get to see really the problem. And I mean, just imagine if, a young man growing up in America says, okay, hey, look, I want to just go out there to the world and make my world, and I'll be exempt from taxation. I'm just going to go out there and apply my American ingenuity, which is no other ingenuity in the world, and make a fortune for myself, maybe come back to the U.S. And you're giving people real options. I mean, it's an incredible thing. So again, the rhetorical device that Trump just sort of gave us, and I just sort of missed it too, because it is double taxation all over the place, right? For some reason, I haven't been saying double taxation, even though, oh, right, that is the problem, as John correctly points out. The problem is double taxation. And so that is what we all should be, on our mouths should be saying, we need to end double taxation. So I think we have a victory regardless. He brought it to the forefront, and now he put a nice sales pitch on it, which is what Trump is known for doing. He is good on turning that phrase. Here we go. And this is what I say. Okay, Trump is definitely the common sense candidate. It's like, okay, well, I don't know. We've had some things pass, so we don't need to get in that. But I can't imagine a Harris presidency worse than Obama. And I mean, I'm not sure, who she exactly is, but, I don't know if she has the capacity to even understand this issue. I would just say, I'm not even entirely sure. It's something that I'm not sure if is going on. I'll see a clear of that. But Keith, here's the comment though. Jason Miller wants to know when you're going to show yourself. And I had to tell him, you're not horribly figured. He's a handsome man. He's actually a handsome man. So
I'm hard to believe you don't exist. Okay, well.
Yes.
I have met Keith Redmond live. Yes, he does exist.
He is a handsome. I'm telling you, it's true. It's true. It's baffling to me. I worked on it much as I could.
Right.
I hit the wall. I'm not going to push any further.
Right.
Aside from my passive aggressive, pointing up the comments. That's all.
Yeah. Jason, just remember, I before E, except after C, and except in Keith.
There you go. Yeah, right. Keith. Yeah, I had Keith the other day. Let's see, what else we got here? So Jason, he's a dual citizen, American European. I work in a casino, make tips. If Trump wins, and he actually does. Oh, right, huh? Yeah, right. Yeah, if tips overseas, right? If that ends, right, that'd be something to see. Right. That's a good comment to see there. And this is, I think, a fat time music. I'm not holding my breath with respect to Trump, but at least he's relatively benign. Well, I don't know about that, but he wants to reduce funding to the IRS, and I think we've been seeing some really interesting proposals from him, like the ending tax on tips, like ending tax on overtime. So pretty interesting. He has proposed it. We'll see what happens. Oh, wow. This is great. I love this. Jason Miller, by the way, you guys are great. Oh, right. And you know what? That's what we want to be. We want to be the lifeline for everyone just sort of frustrated by this and, not getting the attention. So this is an amazing, turn of events for us. We still don't have the largest audience in the world, but the audience that we have is incredible. And some of the smartest people are around. And we're just growing here. So we appreciate all the comments. We've gotten great ideas. By the way, I do want to send my email out to everybody too, because I get great emails from people. So email me with any comments, any stories you think I should be alert to. I might not respond to everything immediately, but I do read it. And you might catch me referencing you in a later show. Let's see here. What else? We got a lot of comments there here. A few more to go. Let's see here. And yeah, Jason's just saying, the U.S. found a way to replace Switzerland. Well, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think Switzerland was ever that, though. The U.S. wants, in a way. I guess I see your point. I see your point, Jason. They're trying to become bigger than.
And he has a point. Now the U.S. is this is off the subject, but now the U.S. is the #1 global tax haven. But that's a whole different subject matter.
Right. So, yeah, you kind of have a good point there. But the replace and supplant Switzerland is probably what I would say, just to say, yeah, I see your point there. We got a sad face. Don't be sad. Oh, he's sweating? No, he's sad. He's sweating. Yeah, we're sweating it out here too. And no matter where one resides, yes, exactly. Some light years away. Right. It's an administrative problem for the IRS, but what they'll do is they'll just create a reporting requirement like the FBAR. Even though you're in the Andromeda Galaxy, you still will have to, or on Centauri B, wherever it may be, you may still have to do that. So that's how they get it, is you have to tattle on yourself. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. They would claim. That's really the thing. They claim universal taxation. Is that something? Yeah, here you go. Oh, yeah, I don't know if Keith's going to do this. Keith, if you don't like, hey, you got your spell right. Vote for many ways. It's easier than convincing the Obama party to scrap FATCA. All right, well, I'm just going to go by that. Americans abroad supporting citizenship taxation is proof. The U.S. finally started, exporting stupidity. Ooh, ouch, poor shells. Yeah, huh? Oh, okay. All right. Actually, and Jason Miller was lying about he was just giving a proposal. He actually doesn't work there, but appreciate that comment. Right. That is something. It would be interesting to see what happens on your tips overseas. Right. So, wow. Fantastic show. John, we had a huge audience today. And I want to thank you, John, so much for your presentation. Really. And I really think you nailed it, hit it there. Let's end double taxation, right? That's what we want to end.
Well, it's a way to have the conversation, but I have another idea on this, right?
Okay.
We talk about, and I probably should have put this in the slides, right? But, we're always talking about solving the problem in terms of sort of existing constructs, right? Tax residency, et cetera. Here's another way to solve the problem, and this might appeal, it's sort of part of America first. The U.S. has citizenship taxation, but the U.S. also has citizenship non-taxation, right? Where dual citizens from birth, et cetera, get certain privileges.
Right.
Yeah. What if America were simply to pass a law saying no other country can tax a U.S. citizen wherever they
I was thinking of that. Yeah.
Wouldn't that solve the problem of double taxation?
Right. I was thinking about that.
I think of this could be sold as part of America first. Just think about this philosophically. If citizenship, from the point of view of if citizenship is the issue for taxation, if it really is, then isn't it morally wrong and possibly a violation of international law for any other country to tax a U.S. citizen? If they can impose FATCA on the world, why not just impose non-taxation of American citizens on the world? That will solve the double taxation problem once and for all, won't it?
Hey, that your U.S. citizenship is finally going to mean something. Then,
so in other words, you get off the plane in any other country, you hold up your passport and you say, "This is my tax deflector. Don't tax me. I'm American. This is my tax deflector." What do you think?
I think that's a wonderful idea. I think that's, I mean, why not? Why not? That's a reason.
If there's no tax on tips, then there should be no tax on U.S. citizens.
Hey, there we go. Hey, we got a new viewer today. Brian, thanks for joining us today. His hometown was invaded by illegal immigrants. And, and I think this is just something, whether or not it's Democrats, look, it's both. I mean, I'm sorry, that border is open, not because of Democrats. It's open because of both. You don't open a border unless there's cooperation within the government. But I would say that we know the border is open, and I think that's a good point. And I think it's a good thing to just sort of recognize what Washington, D.C. is about. It's like, well, why would they want that? Are you saying borders can't be controlled? When did that happen? When did borders not be able to be enforceable by the world's largest superpower? You got to recognize, like, that's not right. That's not weird. And that's really the government against us.
Yeah, but I'm and I hear what you're saying, Anthony, but this is where I have a very hard time, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to Brian at all. But what I have a hard time is Americans overseas putting as priority homeland American issues. That is unacceptable, because if Americans overseas do not stand up for their own rights,
right,
nobody else will.
That's right.
So that's where the Democrat Republican bullshit should be not coming to play at all.
Hey, right.
And that's where I have a hard time. And I go back to stating, if and the reality is there are people out there, even with what this beautiful thing that Trump has stated, whether you believe him or not, he still stated it. If you don't like him, wonderful. Don't vote for him. Push back on Democrats abroad and on Harris to get her position. She should be on the same page. Yeah. That's where I have a hard time with Americans overseas, not the ones with whom I help, because they get it. But these other people who put homeland American issues, immigrant issues, abortion issues, gun control above their own rights outside the United States. It's got to stop. Yeah. Voila. That's my
beautifully said
of wisdom.
All right. All right. And I'm going to go Mike's comment here, and this is going to set me up for John right here. Yes, it sees with my own eyes. My U.S. friend was thrown out of her own startup when the financing partner was given the heads up about the IRS involvement. No tax issue there, no business. So amazing. And so that's really something that's probably a great segue for me to promote my great friend, John Richardson. John helps a lot of people expatriate from the U.S., renounce their citizenship. If that's something you're thinking about doing, I'm going to suggest you reach out to John. You can email him at citizenshipsolutions@proton.mail. He is in Toronto, Canada, if you're okay with people from Canada. I guess I am sometimes. And also I want to I want to thank John so much for this. He really understands the issues incredibly. Also want to give a shout out to Keith, okay, because Keith's got a Facebook group that he's running. Here's the link to it. If you are a U.S. expat, you might want to check that out and just join that group and join the discussion and say, hey, let's end citizenship-based taxation. And now finally, I want to go. We're still, the comments are coming in. All right, so here we go. Yeah, Trump is nuts, but he's more saying that. That's funny. Okay, that's funny. All right, that's pretty funny. All right, and then I want to get to this.
Yeah, no. Also, don't forget, I help Americans overseas.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't even mention that, Keith. I'm sorry, I didn't do that.
That's all right.
We're thinking about what your compliance options are. If you haven't been in compliance, Keith can help you out there. If you're wondering what to do, because you got to watch out for tax industry guys like me. You got to watch out for us because we are limited what we can say. I can't, advise you to do this, but Keith can tell you what's going on around the world. He's not a U.S. tax professional, but he can give you just some of what your options are up into compliance. Now, I want to one more comment. We got one more comment we got to get to here. Mark Turner, thank you for this one. Where double taxation and onerous regulations really hit Americans abroad is if you are self-employed or start a foreign corporation. You are totally screwed. Well, Mark, let's not say totally screwed.
If there's no totalization agreement,
I would not say totally screwed. I would say, okay, you have a disadvantage. It's a disadvantage, but the opportunity overseas may be so large that it puts the compliance costs, the headaches, in perspective. And to that end, I am now going to just give myself a little promotion here too. If you are facing a tax issue, if you're looking to do a streamlined disclosure yourself, you can reach out to us, even if you just need tax prep. My firm at Thaveau and Partners, that we do not believe the U.S. tax code reflects I'm sorry, I should only speak for myself. I do not believe the U.S. tax code reflects the will of the American people. We are actually a tax team on your side. We look at the IRS not as the good guys. We are not here to. There was a comment up there. There was someone put a comment. I got to get to up at the beginning. Someone had it because it's tied in right now. What would happen? Someone had something there. Someone had a comment to say, well, what would happen to us if they got, what would happen to us if citizenship-based taxation went away or double taxation went away? Well, in my mind, I would be busier in new and exciting ways because my clients would be onto incredible opportunities around the world where their tax needs might go down, their business needs will go way up. Business and bookkeeping needs would go way up. And that's really what we're trying to get you. We want to get, that I want to do less tax work myself. I want to see this go away. So if you're looking for a tax firm that's truly on your side, you can reach out, book an appointment here. We'd be happy to meet with you, talk about your issue, what you're looking to do, even if it's just tax prep. So thank you for that. So I want to end it with this. Donald Trump supports ending citizenship taxation. And actually, I want to change that. I got to do this on the fly. I got to change that. Supports ending. That's the wrong way. That's the wrong way to say it. The right way to say it is this. Donald Trump supports ending double taxation, and that is how we are going to present this issue going forward, and I think it's going to be amazingly helpful. All right, closing remarks from you, John. Any?
Well, it's really, really clear from the comments that people are looking for a very specific, detailed road. This, that, and the other thing, and it is very, very clear that this is a statement of policy. It's at the moment aspirational, particularly because I doubt that President Trump or anybody in his inner circle really understands the issue. But what it is an acknowledgement of this as a problem and an interest and willingness in trying to solve the problem. Okay. And that's what's important here. And I strongly suggest that people who care about this issue support the principle of working on the problem. In other words, accept the invitation. Don't ignore this saying, oh, well, we got guilty in 2017 or, say, you know what, we're going to hold you to that. You promised us a discussion. Now we're going to have that discussion. And we're going to show you, how you can solve this problem for us through regulations. Forget Congress. I mean, we know that's complicated, but this can be solved today. So, in many ways, I see this as really a call out, to Americans abroad to accept this invitation.
Yeah, there it is. Beautiful, John. Thank you. Keith, final words?
I think I have said it all.
Yeah.
There's really not much more that I can add than what I've already added.
All right, fantastic. All right, well, with that, I want to thank everyone for joining. I mean, what an incredible audience we had today. A lot of new viewers. Really appreciate that. So get the word out about about our channel. We want to make sure promote our channel, and that's really how we're growing. Our big fans are promoting our channel. That's the only way we're getting the word out there. So it's up to you to say, hey, listen, guys are really helpful. They've been helping, get to the forefront. And really, we have been helping, and we are kind of been pushing on this issue for a long time. And basically, so it's a huge, I just look at this as a huge victory that a presidential candidate who may be ahead in the polls right now has actually recognized the issue. And not only did he recognize the issue, he stated it in a way that resonates more with the public at large, and double taxation of Americans. So with that, I think that's it. We're going to wrap it up for today. I want to thank everybody for a fantastic show. Be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications, and be sure to follow all of us on Twitter. Thanks for watching.